You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
Well, hi there, and howdy. Why did I say howdy? It doesn't matter. Welcome, or welcome back if you've been here before, or just welcome if you're new to Who Did What Now? The History podcast with me, your egregious host, Katie Charlwood, broke-ass bitch and reader of books. If you are new here, welcome to your weekly dose of historical information. It's mainly about a person, sometimes it's about an event, it could even be about a thing sometimes. Who knows? I certainly don't. If I think it's interesting, I'm going to talk about it, and that's generally how it goes here. In addition to this podcast, I also have an Instagram, Who Did What Now Pod, a Twitter, Who Did What Now PD, because there's too many characters in Who Did What Now Pod, and of course, TikTok, where I share bite-sized moments of information. And I also have a Facebook page now. I made one of those because apparently I was told I should. So I did that too. So that also exists. On TikTok, I generally talk about something from history in 60 seconds or less. There's currently a little Q&A on my page, so people go on there and they request me to talk about stuff, and I usually do. So, I have news, my lovely followers. Subscribe, my lovely audience. I have set up a Patreon by request, because the thing about this is it's completely independent, it's all done by me, and it's all done on a shoestring budget because I'm a broke-ass bitch. So, yeah. Yeah, so you can I'll be doing some bonus episodes. There'll be like monthly AMAs, Ask Me Anything. There'll be, exclusive content that's going to be only on Patreon. And there's going to be more stuff being added depending on how this goes. If more people follow me and support me, that means that I can just keep making more content. Like someone asked if I would start doing a YouTube series, so it would be in longer form. And the thing is with YouTube is it's so labor intensive. I used to make YouTube. I used to work with YouTubers back in the day. So I know how labor intensive that work can be. And so currently that's not on the cards just because of everything that's going on right now. But I do hope to eventually start doing that. It just depends on how well I do and how long I'm still on furlough. So currently YouTube isn't happening, but I would love it to happen. But it does mean, it means investing in editing software and lights and a laptop that makes a weird humming noise until you give it a good shake and it starts running normally. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and obviously hosting is another thing as well, because I'm committing a lot of time already to do what I'm doing. But here's the thing as well. And it's starting from, I think €1 is the lowest amount you can do. So I think that's $1.50 in dollars, and I don't know the pounds, probably 70p or something. But it's very, so I wanted to give people an option where they could be just give €1 a month, because I don't want to be a dick about it, you know what I mean? Anyway, other ways to support me, I should say. It means that more people can hear my podcast, see my videos, and so on and so forth. Another request I got was for a kids-friendly sort of history sort of series that I would do. Because the problem with history is that it is very gory and very depressing, and some facts are just too grisly for, 9-year-olds. But currently, I don't have the time for that. But hopefully, I'll start doing that when I get myself a bit more organised, hopefully. Anyway, although there are other ways you can support me, you can follow me on the social medias, because that's always pretty good on the business end. And I am on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of the other places where you listen to podcasts. I am generally there. If you go onto Apple Podcasts and you rate and review, or if you are listening to me on Spotify, if you pay for Spotify, if you could download the episode, that really helps. But a rate and review on Apple, that would be super awesome. And you can give me 5 stars. And you can say anything. You can say, unicorns are my favourite animal. You can say, never eat shredded wheat. It doesn't matter. It's all helping. Anyway, let's get down to what we're here for. History stuff. Shut your mouth and give me history. So, let's get down to what we're all here for. You're like, give me some facts. Well, give me 1 wee second, because I have to cite my sources. We gotta be respectful about this. This week we are talking about America's first serial killer, apparently, H.H. Holmes. People talk like he's this big boogeyman, he's a monster, he's this monster, he's the devil. I think he's just a prick, to be honest. Sources, we have H.H. Holmes, The True History of the White City Devil, by Adam Selzer. We have Eric Larson's The Devil in the White City. And then I've got articles on history.com, britannica.com, biography.com, etc, etc. Let's talk about this, shall we? H.H. Holmes, America's first serial killer, the notorious devil in the White City. He who built a murder castle to lure innocent victims in during the World Fair. This macabre hotel had trapdoors, basement crematorium, chutes that led down to the basement, and sealed rooms and gas chambers, and the demon is all a load of bollocks, and I'ma tell you why. Let's start at the beginning. In a move that surprises absolutely no one, H.H. Holmes is not this gentleman, if we can call him that, real name. He was born Herman Webster Mudgett on May 16th, 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. His parents were Levi Horton Mudgett and Theodate Page Price. And both his maternal and paternal side were direct descendants from the English immigrants who had settled in the area. Herman Webster Mudgett was the third of 5 children. He had an older sister Ellen, an older brother Arthur, a younger brother Henry, and a younger sister Mary. Now, I don't want to be mean about this, but it appears to me that Holmes here is suffering from a severe case of middle child syndrome. So Mudgett/Holmes, his family aren't poor. You know, his dad comes from this farming family, and his dad's always working. He's like farming, he's trading, he's painting houses. You know, there's always money coming in. And as Herman is going through his schooling, he is noted to have higher than average intelligence, which is, I think, a compliment. Higher than average. You're better than general. And you may hear that, like, he tortured animals and did all this kind of stuff, and it's like, because they're trying to make him fit into this general serial killer pattern. You know, a lot of serial killers have a certain sort of origin story, shall we say. So usually there's a childhood head injury, there's torturing, maiming, or killing animals. Sometimes they're a victim of abuse, whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual. These seem to be a common line that runs through. But as far as we know, Holmes didn't have any of that going on. It's sometimes suggested or added in to kind of support this serial killer theory. But there's no evidence. There's no evidence to this. So when he turns 16, he graduates from Phillips Exeter Academy and he takes teaching jobs in Gilmanton and then in Alton. And on the 4th of July, Independence Day, 1878, he marries Clara Lovering in Alton. And they have a son, Robert Lovering Mudgett, and he's born on February 3rd, 1880. So after this, Holmes enrolls in the University of Vermont in Burlington when he's like 18. But for whatever reason, he's like unhappy with being there. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he's barely better than average. Who knows? And he fucks off. After 1 year, in 1882, he joins the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery. And after 2 years, he graduates. So he's a doctor and he graduates in 2 years. I realise this is the past and they're just handing out doctorates like jib-jibs, but like 2 years just seems a little bit slim. Even in the 1880s, it just seems teeny bit slim. That in 2 years, you're going to have enough knowledge to be a general practitioner? Maybe a mortician? Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, graduates in 1884, and Oh, yes, the absolute gobbermouch that is H.H. Holmes, or Herman Webster Mudgett as he is at this time. He works in the anatomy lab, and he puts out all these insurance claims. Because he's a wee sleek-it bastard. So what he does is he puts out these insurance claims on these people, steals the cadavers from the lab, and then injures them or disfigures them or burns them in some way and makes it look like they died in an accident, and then he claims the insurance money. So while he's studying medicine, he is defrauding insurance companies. When some people go to college, they get a new hobby. Sometimes they learn to play the guitar. Sometimes they enjoy a good game of skee-ball. But this motherfucker right here, his hobby was defrauding life insurance companies. Mudgett graduates in 1884, but before he does, his wife Clara leaves him. She fucks off back to New Hampshire with her baby, Robert. Oh, Robert, what a weird name for a baby. Anyway, so she leaves him because he's a violent piece of shit, and then she never hears from him again. So Holmes moves around a bit after that, and he gets to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and he gets a job as a keeper in Norriston State Hospital. But he ends up quitting after a couple days. Maybe getting to the cadavers was a bit more work this time. By the time he gets to Chicago, Herman Webster Mudgett, in a move that surprises absolutely fucking no one, has decided to change his name to Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. So apparently, one of the reasons that he chose the surname Holmes was as an homage to the fictional detective by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes. Maybe he really liked alliteration. Maybe he just wanted it to spell who knows? I mean, really. So yeah, August 1886, he's in Chicago, and at some point comes across this drugstore, this pharmacy, owned by Elizabeth S. Holton and her husband. And it's at the northwest corner of South Wallace Avenue and West 63rd Street in Englewood. So Dr. Holton, the husband, so he and Holmes, they're both Michigan alumni, and he's actually only a couple years older than Holmes. And he thinks, you know what, this dude is really hardworking, so he's gives him a job and he keeps him there. So, fun fact. So, for some reason, when this story is retold, the Holtons are seen as, these elderly people, and that, even though himself was only, a few years older than Holmes, and for some reason, they always portray the story as, he convinces the wife to take out a life insurance policy on the husband dies, and then the wife mysteriously disappears after leaving him in charge of the drugstore/pharmacy. However, this is straight up bollocks, because both Dr. and Mrs. Holton outlived Holmes and survived until the 20th century. So directly across from this drugstore, across the street, there's this empty plot, and Holmes is I like this. And he has a plan. But before that, he gets married. And I know you're thinking, isn't he already married? Yes. Yes, he is. At some point in 1886, when he's still married to Clara, he marries Myrta Belknap in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And a few weeks later, he files for divorce from Clara. The reason for divorce being, and the reason he petitions the divorce, he's saying that she's a cheater, she's cheating on me, says the bigamist. But the claims, they couldn't be proven. And partially because she wasn't even notified. He never got to the point of actually notifying her of this information. He knows where she is, he could have found her. But then that would have mean her knowing where he was, so especially after having a name change. So yeah, Clara's never informed of what's going on, and the divorce doesn't go through. It's never finalised, and it actually ends up being dismissed in 1891 on the grounds of want of prosecution. Basically meaning you didn't bring any proof, you didn't have any follow-through, go fuck yourself. So Holmes didn't actually live in Chicago. He actually lived in... he technically lived in Wilmot and Illinois with Myrta and Lucy, but then he would bugger off back to Chicago in order for him to do shit. In 1887, construction begins in the empty lot that Holmes purchases for this 2-storey mixed-use building. So the bottom floor, what I would call the bottom floor, but a lot of the stuff I read referred to it as a first floor, but to me the first floor is after the ground floor. So you've got the ground floor, then the first floor. But here, first floor means the ground floor, so we're going to go with that. Just in case anyone gets a wee bit, it doesn't make sense to somebody like me who was very confused, and I was like, So it's a 4-story building, and it's like, no. So anyway, 2-story mixed-use building. On this bottom floor, the first floor, it's all retail spaces and shop fronts, and he wants to put like a drugstore in there, so he's got his own, so on and so forth. So this murder castle. So he's building this place, and it ends up being a labyrinth, and it ends up having these, and it has these hidden spaces. Okay, so here's the thing. The hidden spaces are technically correct, but it wasn't for murder. It's basically like having a smuggling compartment on a ship or whatever the fuck, because he would use it to hide stuff that he'd gotten from his suppliers. So basically, Holmes hires all these architects, and he hires a steel company, Aetna Iron and Steel. And they end up actually suing him in 1888. But Holmes, he also doesn't pay his architects, he doesn't pay furniture suppliers. He just doesn't pay people. I think the reason why he kept firing and hiring, contractors and architects and things like that. So, it wasn't for, this big elaborate blah, 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 blah. A part of it was so that nobody knew what was going on, obviously, because he wanted to have places to store his shit, because he was a con man and a thief, and just a shitty person in general. But, so sometime between 1888 and 1891, he decides he's going to add a 3rd floor. So he tells investors and suppliers that he wants to use it as a hotel for the World's Columbian Exhibition, which is basically the World's Fair in Chicago. This creditor of H.H. Holmes, John DeBrule, he's in the drugstore, and he dies on April 17th, 1891, and he dies of apoplexy. What we don't know is if Holmes was involved or not. I'm just saying it's suspicious. I'm saying he probably did it. I think Mr. DeBrule was coming over looking for his money or looking for something back. And Holmes was like, okay, I'm not getting out of this one. Bim, bim, bim. Poisons the motherfucker. Anyway, take this drink. Don't ask why it smells of almonds. So later in 1891, Ned Connor and his wife Julia Smythe had moved into the apartments in Holmes's building. So those two also have a kid together, Pearl, and Ned ends up working in the jewellery counter in the pharmacy. So Julia and Holmes, they start having an affair. When Ned finds out about the affair, he's like, fuck this for a game of soldiers. Off he pops, quits his job and moves away. He leaves Smythe and he leaves their daughter Pearl behind. So Smythe, she gains custody of Pearl and she stays at the hotel. And she stays in the apartment and continues her affair with Holmes. So 1891, Christmas Eve, Julia and Pearl up and vanish, disappear. A wee while later on, Holmes claims that Julia dies as a result of being a part of a royal family might seem enticing, but more often than not, it comes at the expense of everything else, like your freedom, your privacy, and sometimes even your head. Wondery's new podcast, Even the Royals, pulls back the curtain on royal families, past and present, from all over the world, to show you the darker side of what it means to be royalty. From icons like Grace Kelly, Oscar-winning actress turned Princess of Monaco, who the world saw as the ultimate good girl. She mastered playing a happy wife and mother, but beneath it all, she was desperately lonely. Grace spent her whole life working towards perfection, and it ultimately cost her her happiness. Or King Ludwig II from Bavaria. He was only 18 when his father died, leaving the crown to him and a duty to rule that he never wanted. He refused to lead and used the funds from the royal treasury to further his extreme love of opera. But this choice eventually cost him the crown and his life. Follow Even the Royals on the Wondery app or wherever you get your podcasts. You can binge Even the Royals ad-free right now on Wondery Plus.
The regular season is heating up. New stars are emerging, and that means more opportunities to win up to 25 times your cash on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection on a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's that easy. Let it fly to turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Watch your favorite players and get paid doing it this basketball season. See your entries make progress during the game or make new entries for the second half in the fourth quarter. 3-pointers, assists, rebounds, and everything in between are yours for the taking. Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the Prize Picks app and use code GET100. That's code GET100 on Prize Picks for a first deposit match of up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
A botched abortion. Because, he's a doctor. And he basically tries to, give her an abortion. And she dies as a result of it. 1, this doesn't explain what happened to Pearl. And 2, it seems more likely that she was probably causing more trouble than she was worth. So she dies of a botched abortion. He fucking panics. So she dies. He covers it up, whatever way. So he strips and mounts the skeleton and then sells it to a lab or a hospital or a doctor or whatever. And what happens to Pearl? Well, she was small. She would have been easy to get rid of, but ugh. And this is not the first of women who know Holmes to disappear. It seems like it's much easier to get rid of a mistress than it is to, be with her or whatever. Because H.H. Holmes, Mr. Mudgett here, is a fucking misogynist. So there's another chick who is apparently another one of Holmes's flings, Emmeline Segrand. And she works in the building in May 1892. And then she disappears in December. And then Edna Van Tassel was supposed to be known by Holmes, and then she disappears. So Holmes, he's out working on the chemical bank on Dearborn Street, and he meets this dude, Benjamin Pitzel. He's a carpenter who's got a bit of a criminal past, because who didn't? And basically Holmes starts using Pitzel as his sort of right-hand man. They become business partners, and they basically get involved in all of these schemes, shall we say. It's early 1893. There's this actress, Minnie Williams, and she moves to Chicago. Dr. Holmes here claims that he met her in an employment office. So he meets this Minnie, offers her a job as his personal stenographer, and she's like, absolutely, 100%. So Minnie Williams, she has this property in Fort Worth, Texas, and Holmes convinces her to transfer the deed to a man called Alexander Bond. Here's the thing, Alexander Bond is just another alias of Herman Webster Mudgett. H.H. fucking Holmes. So Minnie Williams, her dad was an actual physician, so he leaves his oldest daughter, Minnie, money and real estate and, all that stuff that Holmes wants to get his filthy, grubby little fucking hands on. And when she meets Holmes, he's going by the alias Edward Hatch. So he's draining her for money. So Holmes tells Minnie that he's going to marry her, right? So Minnie's sister Nanny is going to come in and visit because she's going to be at her sister's wedding. So she travels in. She's like, I'm going to be maid of honor. It's going to be fabulous. I'm going to get you the right flowers. I'm going to fight with anybody who ruins your day. I'm here for you, sis. So what happens is she travels in from Texas and Holmes meets her at the station, saying, I'm going to take you in to your sister, no worries. I'm the new hubby. Oh, I'm the hubby to be. This is going to be all nice. So he takes her. So Nanny never actually sees her sister. Holmes makes sure to take all of Nanny's money, and then he kills her. Initially, in his paid confession, I swear to God, he says that Minnie killed Nanny because she was jealous of her, so she hit her on the head with a chair, and he just covered up the crime by throwing Nanny's body in a lake. Because, you know how it is. So yeah, Holmes and Minnie Williams, they start acting like husband and wife, but they don't actually get married. They rent an apartment in Lincoln Park in Chicago, but by July 5th, 1893, neither of the Williams sisters were seen alive. The Williams sisters, Minnie he poisons, and Nanny he suffocates and then disposes after making her sign over everything she owned to him. And apparently at some point he goes travelling and looks for the Williams brother, I couldn't find confirmation on this, but like this is a ticket, if you will. He apparently goes and finds the brother so he can kill him, and therefore there's no one to contest his claims on the Williams property. But yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. At some point during all this, the reason some of the bodies weren't found was Holmes actually pulled a Burke and Hare, properly did it. So he and, sometimes another person whom he hired, so he basically prepares them for medical purposes. So he decides to use all his connections, all his medical training, all that stuff, and he makes skeletons to be sold to schools and medical labs, anatomy training, all that kind of stuff. He basically strips removes the flesh, dissects them, removes all the intestines, insanguinates the whole shebang. And then whatever is left, the goo that is left, ends up getting chucked in like a lime pit or is put in acid and things like that. Any sort of way to break down the smushy body parts. And these skeletons, whoever this hired assistant was, I don't know, but they might have thought they were just doing like work and not, disposing of human remains post-murder, but whatever. So somewhere between 1893 and 1894, the World Fair's over, which, by the way, very few people actually came to stay in his quote-unquote hotel. He never really used it as such. 1893, 1894, he's got these creditors are hounding him. He's already been sued by one motherfucking group. So he's got to get the hell out of Dodge. So 1894, where does he go? Fort Worth. He's like, haha, the property from the Williams sisters. What a crazy random happenstance. Woohoo. So he actually gets arrested in St. Louis, Missouri for the first time. He's arrested for the first time because he's charged with selling mortgaged goods. He then gets bailed out. And so while he's in jail, he becomes, what's it called? Fucking buddies. Prison pals with this dude called Marion Hedgepeth. Hedgepeth is serving this 25-year sentence, and the two of them have this plan to defraud an insurance company out of $10,000. So the plan is to take a policy out of himself and then fake his death. He promises Hedgepeth like a $500 commission in exchange for the name of a lawyer who can be trusted. So Holmes gets bailed out anyway, and he goes to this attorney called Jephthah Howe, who finds this scheme absolutely glorious. It's brilliant, it's fantastic, it's genius. But the insurance company becomes suspicious and they refuse to play. And so Holmes is like, okay, nope. Decides instead to speak to good old Pitzel. Pitzel? Well, this is just going to change the more I say it. So Pitzel, the career criminal from earlier, he's like, Benjamin, was calling Benjamin so much easier. So Benjamin agrees. So he's like, yeah, I'm a fake my own death. My wife can get the 10,000. And my wife can collect the insurance policy and we can all split it. It'll be super awesome. We'll split it 3 ways. So Holmes, Howe and Benjamin. Now, as schemes go, it's a wee bit convoluted. So he's going to go to Philadelphia and set himself as an inventor under the name of B.F. Perry. And then he has to be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion. Ho has to be maybe it's How. I'm going to call him Ho. His job is to be the official person on this. Pitzel has to be, the fall guy, the body. And Holmes, his role is to find an appropriate cadaver. However, he decides it's a much better idea to kill Benjamin. He knocks him unconscious and then sets him on fire. So when Holmes confesses, he says that Pitzel was still alive when he, after he chloroformed him. Because, chloroform in general has to be very specific because you have to think of the body weight of the person that's using it. And if someone inhales it too strongly or too quickly, or if they're panicking, they can inhale too much of it and they could die. That's just how chloroform works. And it's not quick. Chloroform is not quick. You have to be really strong. And I don't know how forensics worked in the 1890s, but as far as they could surmise, it seemed like the chloroform had been administered after the death, which is okay. So, what do you know? Genuine corpse. So the insurance company, they pay out. Holmes, who is a charming and charismatic con man, because of course he fucking is, convinces Widow, who is unaware she's a widow, she thinks that Benjamin is just off hiding somewhere, that he's in England or Europe or something like that. And somehow this absolute glumpus convinces this poor woman to allow 3 out of her 5 children to be in his care. Her eldest daughter and her baby stay with her. So Holmes is travelling throughout America. So he's travelling throughout the United States with these 3 kids, and also he's telling Mrs. Speitzel to go a similar route, sort of parallel actually. And he's using all these different aliases like Edward, Harry, Henry, whatever. Maybe he's even using his actual name at one point. I don't fucking know. Anyway, well, as far as she's aware, he's travelling with her children. So when Holmes is travelling around with the kids, he's taking them to zoos and stuff, and he's using them for schemes. I mean, travelling around with 3 children makes you seem like a more respectable fellow. It really does. However, once they outlive their usefulness, he decides they can no longer live. So at some point during this, in 1894, he gets married again to Georgina Yoke. He's renting this house on 16 St. Vincent Street in Toronto, which no longer exists, by the way. And he forces Alice and Nellie into a trunk, drills a hole in it, into this large trunk, locks it, drills a hole in it, puts a pipe in it and pumps gas inside to kill them. I think most of his murders were done by gas or by sort of poisoning, things that didn't involve a lot of physical hands-on, because I don't know if you ever tried to strangle somebody, but that's a lot of effort. And I don't think he wanted to do that. I think he wanted to use the easiest route possible for him. For some reason, the bodies are nude when he buries them in the cellar of this rental house. And then at one point, Holmes rents this cottage in Indianapolis where he goes to a local drugstore pharmacy, buys a bunch of drugs, and he uses them to kill young Howard Speitzel. So that's those 3 kids all dead. He goes to a repair shop and sharpens a bunch of knives, chops the body up, puts it in a fireplace, and burns it. So Holmes ends up being arrested in Boston on November 17th, 1894, after being tracked there from Philadelphia by the Pinkertons. The Pinkertons. The Pinkerton Detective Agency. Those motherfucking Pinkertons. Anyway, we will discuss at some point also, yes. So him and his unsuspecting 3rd wife, who seems to, think that her lovely husband is helping these children who mysteriously disappear for some fucking reason, it appears that her and him are getting ready to just flee the country again. So they're planning to go somewhere, just escape. So basically they hold him because he has an outstanding warrant for horse theft in Texas. The reason the Pinkertons were involved is because Fidelity, the insurance agency, Fidelity Mutual Life Association, they were suspicious, and his ex-cellmate Hedgepeth had basically tipped them off, going, there he is, because he was I didn't get my money, you fucking prick. Because he was still a bit disgruntled about not getting his money from before, so he's I'm gonna screw you over, bitch. So Holmes is arrested. And so, obviously, they find the bodies of the 2 girls, and they get suspicious, so they start investigating the castle. And what they do find, they find hinged rooms and secret compartments and stuff. They find the basement where, they've got the remains of the bodies of, his ex-mistress. And I say ex-mistress, we don't know if it's them, but chances are it's them. So the police start checking out the castle, as it's called. And what do they find but furniture and other supplies and stuff that Holmes just hadn't paid for? He just scammed a bunch of people out of it. So in 1895... Holmes is put on trial for the murder of Benjamin Speitzel, and he is found guilty and he is sentenced to death. So this is where Holmes starts acting, shall we say. So after he is convicted, right, Holmes starts confessing to all these murders. Quite a few of these people were supposedly killed by Holmes, but they weren't. So he says he kills Robert Leacock, who's a former schoolmate. He says he kills him in 1886 for a life insurance policy. 1, this policy is never taken out. And 2, Robert Leacock didn't die until 1889, so that's wrong. He also confesses to the murder of Miss Kate Durkee, who was also alive. And there's more of them, he says he murdered them, and they just didn't. So the Hearst newspapers are okay, Holmes, we will pay you $7,500 for your confession. And he's right, okay, super. So he confesses and makes his money. But also, in addition, furthermore, Holmes gives all these different accounts of his life. So, like, at one point he's saying he's innocent, at another point he's saying he is possessed by Satan. He talks about how he's a monster who is, like, the reason he exists is to kill, and that he's filled with monstrous urges, and he picked people with the purpose of killing them, and blah, 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 blah. And he talks about how he's beginning to resemble the devil. But, fuck him. We don't care. He can say his bullshit all he likes. It just seems like he's like, you know what? I'm going at the bang. I think he just does it to fuck with people. He just wants this notoriety. You know what I mean? So before he's due to get, a short stop and a sudden drop, he asks to be buried 10 feet deep and his coffin to be, like, contained in cement. Which they do, because he was like, I don't want grave robbers to steal my body for dissection. Oh, sucks to be you, doesn't it? So on the 7th of May, 1896, Henry Howard Holmes is hanged at the Philadelphia County Prison. He was super calm and chilled, gets the rope, he gets his short drop and a sudden stop, except it's not so sudden, is it? Unfortunately for Dr. H.H. Holmes here, his neck doesn't actually snap upon the descent. Instead, what happens is he is strangled slowly. He dies an excruciatingly slow death and is twitching for over 15 minutes before being pronounced dead. So yeah, he is buried in a coffin, covered in cement, and it's 6 foot deep. In 1895, the castle was broken into by some men and who commit arson. They basically commit arson. So these two dudes set the place on fire. And even though it's like being gutted by fire, the building actually survives until 1938 when it is torn down. Good fucking riddance. Oh, and currently where this murder castle was, the post office is there. The Englewood branch of the United States Postal Service. They must feel super happy there. Okay, so by the time 2017 comes along, there's all these conspiracy theories about how Holmes faked his death and that how he escaped. So his descendants agreed to have, the body exhumed and tested. See, the thing is, because the coffin was encased in cement, the body hadn't actually decomposed in the manner that it normally would. So the clothes are all perfect, and even his mustache is there. His mustache is still intact. So they do DNA testing on it and they check his teeth, and they're like, yeah, this is Holmes, no worries, we got the dude. And then they rebury him, no harm, no foul. So that is the story of H.H. Holmes, Herman Webster Mudgett, utter gobshite. Frankly, here ends our tale of murder. So what have we learned today? Don't trust men with mustaches? I'm telling you, Bela Kish, Kaiser Wilhelm II, Henry Howard Holmes, Stalin, Hitler, anybody with a weird mustache, just no. I'm telling you, so that mixologist with the dabber mustache, don't trust him. He's a deviant somehow. Don't know how, but he's a deviant. Maybe he's a deviant in the way you like, but we'll never know. Anyway, stay safe. Also, we need to know that we need to go back and fact check. Unfortunately, in the 1890s, a lot of the newspapers were so sensationalized that a lot of the information we get is often misconstrued. It's kind of like the concept of the Ripper. When they talk about Ripper killings, it's just the manner of killing, which you might call. It's that sort of slashing, like a slasher kill, as opposed to Holmes, which was very much into the whole poison thing. And also, setting people on fire while they're still alive. But whatever, okay, never mind. And that is today's show. And hopefully that has satiated your curiosity regarding the con man that is H.H. Holmes. Triple H, sorry. It's not funny. He would have been a terrible wrestler. I look forward to chatting to you next week, where we're going to talk about some super awesome ladies. Wah, 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 wah. Women, I can't wait. I'm so excited. But for now, I shall bid you farewell, and I shall say adios, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen, my friends. Bye-bye.